Hi everyone, welcome to the 70th episode of the Zicast. As always, I'm your host Ryan Ziax, and today I'm joined by Assistant Video Director Johan Corilla.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, I'd like to shout out episode 31 guest Chen for technical directing once again. So Johan, I think you know what I do here. I interview people and get to know them better, and I'm excited to get to know more about you. So how about you tell us a bit about yourself?
Where do I begin? Let's see. I'm a QU alum.
Mm-hmm.
I lived in Hampton almost my whole entire life. I'm 33, about 10 years, more than 10 years out. 11 years out from graduating. And I was a freelancer for a long time, so I've kind of had my own clients, I set up my own gigs. I like to be behind the camera usually. But now I find myself at QU as a assistant video director, and
Yeah, and to give more context, we know each other because you're one of my bosses at Quinnipiac Productions, which is Quinnipiac's production house. So basically, we make social media content for the school, if that's the simplest way of explaining
Well, we're part of the marketing team, so
yeah.
we got to make Quinnipiac look good, and I prefer the title mentor.
Mentor, okay, that is fitting for what you are, because I always joke that you're like Socrates. Like when you talk to the fellow student workers and it's always getting to hear your wisdom is always incredible. So I'm excited to unpack that and unpack your career as well. So I'd like to ask you, what led you to wanting to be a videographer?
I was always into art. Like I drew a lot. That progressed to taking photos. That progressed to painting, and the art didn't come out quick enough. So I was like, all right, what's quicker to make the thoughts in my head, the stories in my head, a reality? And it was video. Photo is an extension of video. And once I started dabbling into video production, I loved it. I watched a lot of music videos. Music videos were a big inspiration. I went from there. So and I would say video production is out of all the forms of art, probably the one that makes the most money. So it kind of helped. And then the side thing is you should know when I was coming up, when I was like 8 or 9, 11, 12, video games were just starting to introduce cinematics into video games. Like you'd be walking, all of a sudden there'd be a cinematic moment, a cutscene. That was just new. Where like the graphics of the cinematics were so much more than the when you were playing with a character. And I thought that was so cool. And I was like, at some point, movies are going to be all video game cinematics. And we're there.
Yeah. What video games in particular really inspired you?
Final Fantasy X. I don't know if you ever played any of the Final Fantasy games, but they have the best cutscenes. So they just, I don't know, they just do a really good. I don't know how they come up with it. Some of the cutscenes, I'm like, I don't know who thought of this shot, of this choreograph, of the music. But obviously, when you have animation, you have more control over every nuance in the video. So it's crazy. I love it. Yeah,
and even how video games have advanced, because I don't know if you've ever played like Telltale games where they're kind of they're very story based, where you kind of just make decisions and it's not typical video game gameplay. So it's kind of like taking a movie and just breaking it up into a video game.
Right.
And you also brought up music videos. I know a lot of like big time Hollywood directors got their start in music videos. What exactly was it about music videos that really drew you into videography?
I was always curious about the behind the scenes, like who came up with the video. Like some music videos are just weird. Like who comes up with that? Is it the artist that's like, I want to do this? I'm thinking my song should be to this. Is it the director? Is it like the cinematographer? Is it a combination of all? And I would watch some music videos that were really cool stories. They were standalone from the music, and then you just watch them. I used to watch some really weird music videos, and I'd be like, either how do they come up with it? I'm always curious about how people come up with stuff. I feel like not enough credit is given to the person that comes up with the idea. Because I think it would help people that wanna do that, want to be the next people that come up with ideas. Like, how does that dynamic work? I'm sure it's a combination of multiple people brainstorming together. But I feel like it would be nice underneath every movie or every music video, be like, this idea was by so-and-so, this idea was by so-and-so, this idea was by this person.
Yeah.
So almost give credit where credit due. Where's credit due?
Exactly. And I also think of like big time Hollywood directors actually directing music videos like Bad by Michael Jackson. Martin Scorsese did that one, and there's like the 7-minute build up to the actual music video. Yeah. So I always think about that. And like, are there any music videos in particular that really stand out to you?
No, Blink 182 was like big when I was growing up. They have some weird music videos. There's a band called Block Party. They have some really trippy music videos. And I just thought it was creative. And I remember I would make some with my friends. I had a little camcorder that my dad bought for me, and I would just make videos and try to cut them to music. So that's how it all started. With
music videos, because there's typically not really dialogue, and you're able to tell this film. It's almost in a way like a short film in that sense, where it's purely through visuals and you're conveying the song.
Yeah, it depends on how you want to approach it. If you want to do line by line of like what the lyrics are saying to show that, if you want to do like something that's completely different than what the lyrics are, you want to do a combination. But I always find that I have these good music video ideas, and I'm saving them for if I ever become a music video director.
Exactly. I mean, you already are with our video for the school about Slick Vic, who is a rapper rapping about Quinnipiac, which I make a few appearances in, without a beard, with a beard, and then I will disclose this on here.
No, you can't.
I can't.
People have to watch it. People have to watch it.
Okay. That I was a certain mascot, and it is all I'll say.
Oh, were you?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember that day. It's. I don't think people give enough credit to the people that spirit Boomer.
Yeah.
It's a tough job.
It's a group effort to bring our buddy Boomer to life. And you're talking about these things that influenced you. So I'd like to ask you what your journey in the film industry has been like since you've graduated from Quinnipiac, and kind of what that's all taught you.
I would say I try to do the narrative route. I think most people that go to film school try to do a version of the narrative route. And I did a couple of I worked on a couple of features and independent shorts on the camera department side. I knew early on that I wanted to be part of the camera department. I think that helped me a lot because I almost skipped the PA route. I feel like PA is definitely a position on set that needs to be done, but I skipped it because of my how vocal I was about wanting to be in the camera department. So I got really lucky. I got a couple of jobs, and I gotta say, making films is a lifestyle. It's a tough environment. So I did that for a couple of years when I graduated. Also, while I was in school, I think I worked on one or two feature projects during the summer, and then I would say I bought some gear. I gained a couple of clients, people that needed videos to be done. I could shoot them, and I think I should have charged them more. I think that's probably why they called me back, is because I was compared to other people that they were asking to do the same projects. I was probably underbidding those people. But eventually I did enough good things for them that they liked me as their. There's one thing you have to know about freelancing is usually when you're breaking in, you're put on there's the A team, the B team, the C team, the D team. Usually you start at the E team. Like they call you when this guy has food poisoning, this guy is in Europe filming something else. His recommendation is usually they call you out of desperation because they have a shoot. They need somebody to fill a role. And slowly you work your way up from the E team to the D team to the C team to the B team, and I think you got to respect that. You can't take away a job from the A team from whoever that client thinks is their A team. But if you stick around long enough, eventually you make it on people's A teams. And you're their first call. So I made it to a couple of people's A lists. They became my clients, and I would say that a lot of them did like interviews with CEOs. They need somebody to do the camera, do the lighting. So that's kind of was my bread and butter for a long time. And then I rented out gear. I actually worked with a lot of students. A couple of years after I graduated, I worked with students from Quinnipiac renting out gear, giving them advice. on how to shoot their capstone projects. And that helped me find local labor. So I found a couple of really talented people locally that I then hired when they graduated, and they helped me out. So
yeah. And speaking about like your film work, well, also when you bring up the A team, the B team, the C team, a lot of advice I've heard about the film industry is kind of like any industry is to pay your dues, and eventually you work your way up to those A teams. And as long as you're on, like you mentioned, a couple people's A teams, you could find yourself working. And I've seen you work as a cinematographer for certain shoots, and it's incredible seeing you work. Like we were on a shoot recently where you had the camera and you were moving around, and we had a monitor to the side where we could see what you were seeing in real time. So it was like being inside of your brain as you were filming that. So it's kind of take us through, like, for example, you're filming one of Quinnipiac's hockey games or anything like that. Like, what are you looking for in terms of getting the best shots?
It depends on the project. So it depends on the pace of the project. You know, sometimes you have to make a decision. Do I give them more? Do I give the post? Because you're always working for the edit. Do I give the editing department more shots? Do I give them better, like longer shots? Do I give them do you spend time lighting the scene and making each shot higher quality? If that makes any sense. So you have to make that decision in your head. And then you kind of, let's say I need 20 shots for this video. You kind of put a countdown, and you probably want to give yourself 25 shots because 5 of those shots are going to hit the cutting room floor. They're never going to be used. So that's kind of how I work. I work systematically.
Yeah.
But in terms of when you're on set, I don't know. I've been doing this for 10 years. I think that's a long time. I think you can master any skill in probably 2 to 4 years if you're really awake and paying attention to what's happening on set. I steal from other people that I work with. You ask questions. Why did you set up the light there? Oh, because I know that I'm never gonna film that corner of that room. Why did you set up that light versus the other light that you have? Oh, because that light throws a certain distance. So like, you never reinvent the wheel. You just pull from other jobs that you did.
Yeah, you just keep it spinning.
Yeah. And so the more jobs that you're on, the more that really you're just pulling from past experiences. So a little bit methodical in terms of the number of shots that I need, and then just pulling from past experience. And I will add that I think the benefit that I have as a run and gun shooter, which is the shoot that we were doing, is I have small children, and they never stop moving.
Yeah.
I should have mentioned that about myself. I have two small children and a very supportive wife, and they never stop moving. And I take a lot of pictures of them. And while those pictures are static snapshots, I think they help me. They help me like visualize. All right, this is what the camera would look like if I'm over here. So in my head, as soon as I enter a room, I can kind of put the camera in my mind wherever I want. So I don't know, that's a skill that helped me a lot too.
I can only imagine the masterpiece family photos. You guys must have, like, Christmas morning must be like a film set.
I try to enjoy some of the moments and take mental photos. And I've been doing. I feel like I've been doing a good job of saying, like, put the camera away, enjoy the moment, because you only get it for once. But every once in a while, when what helps, getting a new lens or a piece of gear, I'm like, I got to test this out.
That's your Christmas present.
Yeah, exactly.
Wrap that present back up. We need a second take.
Exactly.
And you also mentioned film as a lifestyle. Do you mind elaborating more on that?
So I think there's careers that are lifestyles, meaning that you can't, when you clock off off your job, that job follows you. One of them is probably one of them that people can relate to is like firefighter or EMT. Or anything in the healthcare. Teachers are another lifestyle. Like, you can't, as a teacher, I feel like you can't turn that off. You run into a student, outside of your local community, you can't turn off that teacher mode.
Yeah.
I think film is one of them. And another big thing is, it's like all arts, you're not really doing it for the money. So you're probably taking a financial loss for doing something that you're more passionate about. So I would say, but that's what I mean by like a lifestyle is it follows you outside of work. Like you can't just watch a movie, after you clock out. You like analyze it.
Yeah.
You stopped it, like the sun is setting, and I stop. I'm like, oh my god, the lighting is great. Let me take notes. Like that light is bouncing off that building, that's reflecting off that person. Like you're always constantly visually storytelling in your head. So I think you pay for it. I think you have to understand that, and I think your partner has to understand that. Your kids have to understand that. You have to understand that by choosing this career, it bleeds into every aspect of your life.
It's kind of like a writer always writes, so to speak. When you think like you always see those stories, and that it like you said, it just involves you in every aspect of your life. And something else I wanted to bring up, how you gave me the audio advice of speaking into this like this. So Liam and I are part of a comedy podcast. I mentioned this to you as well, where I told the hosts to speak, to do this, and to speak, to sit at the edge of their seats and enunciate with their hands. And now it's become like a running gag on our show where they were like, oh, gotta do it.
You know what you gotta do is tape a straw to them with the same distance. And say you gotta make sure the straw is just
that would be comedy to see them do. I mean, they're like loud kids, so thankfully they always adhere to the advice, but it's funny I'll put it here on the show to say that you're the one who gave us that advice to.
And I have to add an asterisk to that, where it's like there's a lot of, in any creative art form, this is a creative art form I consider, there's a lot of references or guides, but they're not laws. So like I can be far away, and as long as I'm vocalizing, this rule doesn't matter. Like the rule of thirds is like another one that they're just references. They're go-to if you're like tired and you can't think anymore, and they're like, we need one more shot. Like just be like, all right, I'm just gonna frame up something rule of thirds, and I'm halfway there. So there's nothing in this field that is a law. But I'm always careful to explain that it's not a law, because people sometimes, especially when you're learning, when just starting off, you take it as a law. And it's not. You should understand the rule, but know when to break it, know how to break it.
Exactly. So kind of like a guidebook. Like if you know the rule, you can break the rule, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I think that's great advice, which leads us well into our next topic, which is kind of advice you would have for young filmmakers or young people wanting to enter the film industry.
I talk a lot. And I love giving advice, because a lot of the advice that I give is for myself. I'm any advice that I give, I need to listen to it. So if I do give advice, it's not that I'm like saying, hey, you're doing this wrong. It's just like I need to hear that back too. I need to remember, like you need to sometimes relearn a lesson that you already mastered. And I'm sorry, what was your question?
Kind of the advice you have for young people wanting to enter the film industry and be filmmakers.
I think the going back to understanding that it's a lifestyle, understanding that it bleeds into other aspects of it, other aspects of your life. I think you should be aware of it, because you need at some point. I think you need to make the decision of like separation. So like I need to separate myself from. I don't need to work as much. I need to enjoy my kids, my partner, especially if they're not in the industry. I think you should be aware of that. But when you're young, everything's like new, and I would call it like your first love, where like you're like everything's so exciting, and maximize those years. I would say, I don't know, if I had to put an age to it, people graduating a 4-year program, it'd be like 21, 22, probably to 28. You want to like work every day as often as you can. Probably meet meet your collaborators and your friends that you're gonna be working with. But know at some point that you don't have to work that hard. So that's one piece of advice. I think that's a piece of advice that I had to learn. That my son taught me. My oldest. He was like 1.5 when COVID hit, and we were kind of forced to stop working, and I got to hang out with him, and I was like, hanging out, like he's a really cool dude. How do I hang out with him more? And then COVID, obviously at some point work came back and it was busier, and I was like, I'm gonna say no to that job, because it takes me yeah, I can make a lot of money, but it takes me so far away from Camden. And I was like, that whatever extra $1,000 that I'm going to make by traveling a couple of days, it's not worth it. So again, that's like prioritizing, like trying to remove the work from your lifestyle. So like I said, any advice that I give, I'm still learning how to do that. So something that I feel like we have to practice all the time.
Because I think about a lot of the people like I worked with in Hollywood had similar tracks where they just wanted to work, and then they had families, and then kind of decided to pull back from that. Like, do you find that's very universal in the film industry?
I think so. And I would say it's an extension. Like, it doesn't have to be kids. It can be pets. It can be like family. It can be like your parents. Like, maybe you want to see your parents more. It can be your spouse or your partner. Maybe you want to see them more, and the lifestyle just doesn't let you line up with their schedule. And at some point, you just get tired. Yeah. When you do a feature film, it's a 12-hour day, probably 12 and a half with lunch, because most productions don't include lunch. At least the productions that I worked on early on. And then you probably, depending on your department, you're probably there an hour before. Another hour after, no overtime, plus the travel. So like if you're doing 16-hour days back to back, you get 2 days off really just to recover, just to get back your sleep, and then do that again, get 2 days off, and then do that for like a third or fourth week. You're pretty much, you're shot at the end of that. And you need some time for your body to recover mentally and physically. And what I'm finding as I'm getting older, is it takes me longer to recover. Where I be able to bounce back in a couple of days. Now it's maybe like half a month. So, I made a decision a long time ago not to kind of do those jobs, and sometimes I miss it, but when I'm offered that opportunity and I do it for a couple of days, kind of to fill in for a friend or cover a friend, I'm like, there's a reason why I don't do it anymore. I just can't keep up.
So it's kind of those priorities changing. And if you don't mind me asking, what kind of features have you worked on?
So I worked locally on a couple of Hallmark features.
Oh, really?
That was like a big thing, and that's a big thing in Connecticut. You can see them spring up in like the summer, in spring and the summer, even though like most of them are for
like Christmas.
I worked on a couple of those. And then from there, I just got recommended a couple of horror stuff, a couple like indie stuff. And indie is a different like pay grade. This is a different structure. I never worked on anything that I would say is like big theater or any big streaming shows. So I give a lot of credit to people who do that, because I don't think you have to know when you're not going to the Olympics. I'm not, that's the Olympics. Like those who are people who work on those films, they're Olympic performers. Yeah, they can go the distance. Did you have any in particular, like any types of films that you preferred to work on? No, I think a lot of it was just based. I bought a lot of equipment, and the production were like, we need to rent out this stuff. You have access to it. Can you rent out that equipment, plus do the labor? Usually a lot of the stuff that I got booked on was like B cam. So like when you have a production, you have an A cam, and then sometimes for certain days for certain scenes you would need a B cam to get extra shot or extra coverage. And I'd be more than happy to work a couple of days as the B cam, either operator or assistant, and then they would promote like their first AC as an operator. And I would be there. I would be his assistant, because I knew the camera. The camera was mine, so I can kind of walk them through and help them troubleshoot. You're troubleshooting a lot on set, and if you know the gear inside and out, you're a valuable asset. And I think that's why I was called back, because I had the gear, plus I knew how to troubleshoot on set. Yeah, and that's another piece of advice you usually give, is to keep up with technology changes as well. For young film. Do you mind elaborating on that? Yeah, I think one of the biggest. I try to take what happened with me. So I came up when 4K, when things were going from 1080 to 4K. And when things were going from 1080 to 4K, another thing that was happening is like RAW was coming, like RAW video capture was coming up. And it was a big technology shift. Even though it's just like you're still shooting an image, it was a lot more data than the 4K was a lot more data than 1080. And I'm finding this out as I'm getting older. Like, once you're set in your ways, it's hard to be like, for somebody to be like, hey, guess what? Now we're learning 3D, and you're like, oh, I gotta learn that now.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's exciting and it's refreshing, but you have to almost your brain has to discard a little bit of what you know, so that you can free up that mental space. And what I found is I helped out probably a lot of people in their 50s, like early 50s, early 50s to 60s. They worked in 1080 or they worked in tape for a long time, and they're like, Johan, I don't have the mental capacity to do 4K. Can you just make sure that the 4K camera works, and you'll be my assistant. So I helped out a lot of people, and because I was like, all right, I'll learn everything about 4K. I'll learn everything about the new codecs, everything about the new cameras. All you have to do is keep on doing what they've been doing for 30 years. That helped me out a lot. I think they respected me because I was able to fill in that information gap for them, and I respected them for giving me so much responsibility. Where sometimes I was faking it. Sometimes I was like, I don't know how this camera works, but I know how the other camera that's similar to. And you see me sweating, be like, oh my god, like, they want this changed. Let me find it in the menu. Let me read the book. All right.
Yeah.
But I say that story. Every couple of years, technology changes. And I feel like as a young person, if you are ready for that change, you can help the older generation. They can help, lift you up.
Yeah.
And you can provide a service that I think just even people in 30, 40s that have been doing it for 20 years don't have the mental capacity to learn. So I say that you should be ready for it. You should be excited and ready for those technological changes. What it is, I don't know. I thought it was 3D, but I think it's like maybe VR. Podcasting, right? Podcasting is big. So where like the audio is more important than the video, like. So that before audio wasn't as like, and it's an industry joke that the audio department always gets the shitty end of the stick. But now it's like the audio is almost more important, right?
Yeah.
The content's almost more important. So yeah, just be ready for those changes, and master it.
Yeah. Because I feel like being adaptable is always one of the most important things.
And that's one of the nice things about our line of work is that things are always changing. So you every day was different. Every day in the office is like different.
Yeah.
And I think creative people thrive in it. I hate when things are the same for a long time.
It becomes mundane, and then you're able to break out of that, and you consider yourself a mentor. So kind of breaking beyond talking about young filmmakers, what advice do you have for just young people in general?
I got a heads up of what questions you were gonna ask, and I really thought about it, and I think if I like giving advice, but I think one of the things that helped me, and that I strive to understand really well is finances. Like the arts are a field where, just like teachers, they don't get paid what they deserve, and they're doing a service to the next generation of individuals. The arts, I think we're providing a service, maybe not as prestigious as a teacher or like a firefighter or a police officer, but we're providing entertainment. Entertainment is a big part of people's lives, and because we provide that, we get paid less. Or sometimes you hear it as like, I'm giving this job for exposure, for your reel. So we take a pay cut. But if you understand finance, you know how to maximize that pay cut. So understanding finance, like understanding that, I'll give you an example. So like before, like I would get a job, they gave me like, let's say I'm a DP or a camera operator for a job. They gave me $1,000. I'd have to understand that, like, I don't get that full $1,000. 300 of that goes to the government in taxes. Another 50 of that goes to maybe my health insurance or Social Security or some other bucket. 50 of that goes to me paying for my gas to get there, my expenses. Maybe another 100 of that goes to just like equipment that I need, and then I get the remainder, which from $1,000, the remainder is probably like $250. But I would know people that didn't understand all those costs, and I got $1,000.
Yeah.
Like, oh, wait. And then they blow all that.
Mm.
And then come tax season, they would have to pay. They would have to owe a lot.
Yeah, Uncle Sam gets them.
Yeah. So I think just understanding finances is a big, the thing that I advise people.
Yeah, because I remember you explaining to me to invest in, was it Fortune 500?
Yeah, so
companies?
like understanding like the stock market is a thing that really helped me out.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you the liberty of saying like I it sounds crazy when I say like I said no to this job that paid me X amount because I wanted to be local. I wanted to see my son. People were like, "Why did you do that?" And I was like, "Cause I'm financially good. I don't need that money. I'm not stretched thin. Yeah, my car is paid off. Like it's older, but like again, I just understood finances. So that's like an extension of that is understanding the stock market, because you get that $1,000. Like, and I'm talking about freelance labor. If you're working for a company, they should be taking taxes out. They should hopefully offer you some retirement. But when you freelance, you usually get the check for the full amount, and it's up to you to separate some for your retirement account. So once I started understanding that, I was like, I should have done this earlier. But yeah, understanding finances, and then an extension of understanding finances, and this is I give a lot of credit of my success to my wife, because it's because of her that I think I'm able to emulate such success. And she kind of and that the reason I bring her up is choosing your partner is really important. Somebody that's sees things the way that you see it, especially when it comes to finance. They say like, don't have an expensive wife. And it's true. Like, just I think that bleeds into just like just our career is a lifestyle and bleeds into other aspects. Like your partner bleeds into a lot of your other aspects of your financial stability, which bleeds into your happiness. So everything's a little bit interconnected.
Happy wife, happy life.
Yeah. Exactly. No, but it's again, it can be happy husband, happy whatever. Like, it's just I think being on the same. I think choosing your partner wisely is very important. And that's not to say that I wasn't like I'm not in love with my wife, or who, like, even if she wasn't exactly, I'd still love her. I still appreciate everything that she brought to the table. But I got really lucky that my wife was had the same like financial mentality as I did. Because when you see eye to eye and that, I think that's something that people don't talk about, especially young people. They, you find a partner and you kind of don't. Hey, what are your financial plans? Like, do you want to work forever?
Yeah.
Like what's important to you? What brings you happiness? Is it like having a nice car? Great, like splurge on that. But if you run into somebody that they like having a nice car and nice shoes and a nice camera and a nice house, like they better get a job that pays that amount, or they better work 24/7 because and you tend to find that maybe they don't know what brings them happiness, and they're just filling the void of they're not knowing by having all these fancy things. So those are discussions that I think every young person with their partner should have at some point.
Especially as they venture into things like marriage.
Yeah. I think marriage is like the biggest like financial decision you ever have to make, and people just like don't talk about the finances, and I'm guilty of that too. Like I think like I remember one day on talking to my girlfriend, my future wife, I told her how much debt I was in for my equipment, and I remember she was like, "What?" And I'll disclose, like I financed a lot of equipment, probably like $200,000 to $300,000 worth of equipment. Luckily, I feel like I did it in a smart way, but at one point I was like $80,000 in equipment, and I was like, I need to pay this off. I'm not sleeping at night. I'm trying I'm picking, like I'm doing every job, even the jobs that I don't love, because I'm trying to pay down this debt. And at some point I was like, maybe I just sell that equipment. And I did a little bit of both. I sold it and I rented it out, and I was able to pay down my debt. And I remember the day I paid down my debt, I slept so good. I slept like it's crazy. it's crazy what that does to you. So again, just being more financially aware, understanding finances, and my wife helped me out a lot with my finances. She was very supportive. She was like, you can do it. You can figure it out.
Yeah.
So I owe her a lot.
Yeah, it lifted the weight off your shoulders. And something else you mentioned was to not take things personally, but to stand up for others.
Oh, yeah.
Do you mind explaining that or elaborating on that?
Yeah, I think the creative field, like I'll give you an example. So like you're on set, you're on hour 10 of 12, everybody's tired, everybody's a little hangry. And I'm like, Ryan, can you just move that tripod? Like I need you to move that tripod out of my way. Like just help me out. That's something that can be taken very personally, right? Like you can say like, oh, like why did he yell at me? And you're like, you know what? Like, and you can fight back and be like, you move the tripod. But sometimes, just taking a step back, be like, understanding everybody's tired, everybody's hungry. I'm not gonna let that bleed into the next day. I think in a creative field, a lot like and feedback to something, an idea, especially when somebody knocks at your idea, like we're not doing that, is very personal. It hurts, and I say that. I take things personally. When somebody doesn't like my idea, I'm like, come on, it's the best idea.
It's like Vic.
Yeah, exactly. But you got to remind yourself, don't take it personal. Don't bring it on to the next day. I think that helps. That helps you keep you in the race and maintain those relationships. But then when everybody's cooled down, then you can talk about it. Hey, like is that really, if the tripod thing is a really important thing, like I'll do that next time. Just like you gotta chill. Like you gotta chill.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, thank you for not calling me out on the set, but pulling me aside and letting me know.
That's great advice, because it's not what you say, it's how you say it.
Oh, 100%.
I feel in a lot of ways where it's like you can convey the same message without a tone that could kind of make things heated. Like you said.
Tone is very important, and like I said, on set there's a lot of moving parts. It can be very stressful in a creative environment. Somebody shoots down your most favorite idea. It can be very personal. But don't take it personal. Say that good idea for another day. Keep it in your back pocket. Write it down in your notes app and save it for when you get the opportunity to use that idea again.
Yeah, because we work in communications, so we should be able to communicate.
Yeah, it's hard. It's ironic. It's like somebody working in finance and they're in a lot of debt or broke.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic, and kind of like what you said strikes a chord, because I always take things to heart, as you probably know from working together. So it's always good to kind of think about it in that way.
It's hard. It's hard not to. And like I said, it's something that I should tattoo on my hand, so I don't take this personally. It's hard. It's a very hard thing, especially when ideas are burned.
Yeah. And we're speaking about your work, but now to kind of get into more things about you, I'd like to ask you, what are some things people might not know about you, like fun facts?
I don't know, but they don't know about me, but I love being a dad. I think being a dad is the most stressful thing I've ever did. And but it's the best thing I ever did, and I don't think I was ready to be a dad when those cards were dealt, and it was planned. It was planned, and I felt like I was ready, and I was like, oh, I'm not ready, but I think it's the best thing that has ever happened to me, both just in terms of my growth, and in terms of the joy that you get to watch a little person become a big person.
Yeah.
It taught me a lot.
Yeah. I know it's funny for me to say this in my position. I feel like that's something you're never really prepared for. It's one of those things you're never really prepared for.
Yeah, you're not. And there's a lot of stuff that you have to figure out along the way, and there's a lot of mistakes that you're going to make. And I think that's like one of the things that I hear people say, like, I'm not ready. I think though, there's just like you talking about finances with your spouse, you should look at like it. It's easier to be a good dad when you're financially prepared. But sometimes just being financially aware is being financially prepared. Knowing your expenses and your income and your numbers. I think that's all you need to start, saying, hey, I want to be a parent, or I think I'm ready.
Because if you're financially prepared, and everything else kind of figures itself out. And you mentioned marriage being this big, like, financial investment. You think it's because of you and your partner, but it's also you, your partner, and then your children potentially. That adds all on top of that. And you also mentioned you're a first generation immigrant.
Yeah. So I was born in Peru. My parents came here when I was 2, and I wouldn't change it. I think I've been very blessed that my life wasn't as difficult as other first generation immigrants that I like their stories that I hear. But it helps me put things a lot into perspective. And the thing that I always think about is my dad came here when he was 36, 37. He had nothing. Like they had negative. They owed people money because they borrowed money so he can have a apartment here for us. So they're negative, and they had no skill, no high school degree, no nothing. I think they were making like what would be equivalent to like maybe $3 an hour like now. And somehow they're able to, through being frugal, through just working really hard, they're able to buy their own home, pay it off, and like now they're in their like late 60s. And I would say they're financially set. Like they don't have to work another day in their lives. And they did that in 30 years. And the reason why I say that, because in perspective, is I'm 33. I have 4 more years to be 37. I can be just as successful as my parents. And I'm already started with a good job, a degree. So I think if they can pull themselves out of that, I think that's one thing that's not so great about America is that if you have a good partner, if you understand your numbers, if you're a little bit frugal, if you understand what actually brings you happiness, like what thing you like to splurge on. I think you can be successful. You don't have to work very. They worked hard. You don't have to. Like they didn't make a lot of money, and somehow they were able to raise 3 kids and do everything that I live a pretty happy life. So and. Before my wife, it was my parents that helped me out.
Yeah, if they're doing the right things and setting up the next generation to continue even further.
Yeah, that's like the other hard thing about being a first generation is I'm trying to make sure that my kids aren't too spoiled. It's a good thing, but I'm like, oh man, like I'll give you an example. Me and my brothers, we pool our Christmas money together so we can buy a Nintendo 64, which is our first video game console. But my son already at 4, he had a Switch, a PlayStation, a PC, and a tablet. It's like you didn't have to work for it. But I'm like, all right, that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah. And do you think their kind of attention to detail with money and things like that definitely got passed down to you would say?
Yeah, I think so. I always had like talking about the music videos and how like understanding how things work and how things were built. I just like things. I just like thinking about how things work, and I think finance is an extension of that. I'm just curious. Sometimes I will dive deep into something and be like, I don't know why I needed to know that information, but that was cool. And then 2 years down the road, I'll get a job where it'll be like, we need to, like you're filming like vacuums.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, like 2 years ago, I learned everything there was about vacuum technology.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's just funny how it all ties in together.
Yeah, you never know what you need to know.
Yeah, exactly.
So to speak. And you talk about your family. What's one thing you love and one thing you strongly dislike?
I'll start with the strongly dislike. I think I hate people taking advantage of other people, and that may sound obvious, but I think I don't think there's anybody that vocalizes like I love when people take advantage of other people, but I think part of that is just paying it forward. Like I got a lot of help. My mentors didn't hold anything back, like any information back. They didn't take advantage of me, and working in this line of work and just being in life in general, you see other people taking advantage of other people. And I'm a big advocate of not turning the other way, but vocalizing that, and with a respectful tone, because I think people don't do it. A lot of people don't do it intentionally, but it just happens over time. It just sometimes it just creeps in. I'll give an example, and this is just like one sample that comes to mind. Like let's say, for example, you're a young person and you're living with your parents after college, and they're not charging you rent, and they start charging you rent, a little bit of rent, and you're like, oh, like, why are you charging me rent? Like, I'm your son. And they're trying to teach you a lesson, and then they slowly raise it, and you're like, I'm paying 400 now. You want to pay 600? But that's the reverse of you. You're taking kind of advantage of your family. And instead of being like, thank you for 600 is definitely below market rate. If I were to do this on my own, not have you guys, and they're trying to teach you, and hopefully they're trying to teach you a lesson. They're not just trying to punish you. But again, that's that person that is doesn't see the what their parents are doing, isn't trying to do it maliciously. They just got comfortable, and like now that somebody's pushing them out of their comfort zone, they're like, you're taking advantage of me. So again, the tone is really important. But I think we should all be advocates of calling people that are abusive, especially if they're constantly abusive, out publicly. And then the one thing that I love, I already talked enough about my wife and my kids. I'm trying to give a different answer. I don't know. I love learning. I think that's it sounds cheesy, being a lifelong learner, but there's something about diving deep into something that you don't know that I like. And I think with the internet and with social media, you can learn about anything. But you have to be careful, because I feel like you ever seen that like there's a chart that shows, like, when you're first learning something, you would think that you're the smartest, like you're the smartest in that thing, and then as there's a tipping point where you learn a certain amount, you're like, I don't know anything about this field, and then but you do, because you've been researching it enough, and you feel like so I think that people should cross that. Most people just learn a little bit about it and then think they're an expert, but most people should try to make it to that other side of the curve, where it's like nothing. When you know nothing about a topic, when you've been doing it for 10 years, then you probably know something. So I love getting there. I think it's daunting, it's exhausting, but then I feel like I actually know something.
Is that your path with woodworking?
With woodworking? Yeah, just to keep me sharp. Yeah. I don't know. It's just how are things built? Like, there's so many ways. Yeah. I'm just curious. So.
Yeah. For context, you were showing me at work one day the reels on your phone or YouTube shorts of people doing woodworking.
It's just crazy how somebody can make something out of nothing. And I think that all ties back to, like, how do you make a music video? Like, you literally are making something out of nothing. There's some joy that you have by making something concrete or tangible. I just love it. It's witchcraft, right? It's like playing God. Like if God made man, then we're making this art. We have some control over it, and at some point we just got to let it go and let it be. And people will read into what that your movie. I think you said your movie is this, and you're like, no, I just like I just used the color red because I liked red at the time. No, that stands for blood. Like you let it into the world and you let it be.
Yeah. So. And even like building stuff, like, I mean, human beings started as primates building stuff. So naturally we would love to do that, and then it transfers into things like art like that. And then it's interesting what happens when art gets out into the world and can be interpreted by other people. Right. And I like to ask you, kind of moving forward, like, what are some of your kind of goals moving forward? It's like still your hopes and your dreams.
I would say one of the things I like to tell myself is that this might be very, very naive of me, but I'm 33. I feel like 40 is the new 20. And I say that like in 7 years, I don't know where I'll be, but maybe I'll randomly be like, I want to make films now. Like today, this is the year. Yeah. And I think that's okay. I think I can bring, like, at 40, I'll have so much life experience that I'll be able to feed into the story that I'm telling at the time. So I have all these stories that I feel like it's my purpose to tell. And right now I'm just kind of writing the structure and the backbone. And one day I'll film them. So that's where I think my career will take me. But right now I like the job because I'm like 7 minutes from my house. I love the people that I work with. I love working with students. So right now in my life, I'm cruising, and I need that. I need that right now. But that means that I still haven't forgotten the stories that are really close to my heart that one day I'll be able to showcase.
Yeah. It reminds me of something I saw Denzel Washington say in an interview. He said, first act of your life, you learn. The second act, you earn. And the third act, you return.
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like that would be like your return era.
Hopefully that'll be my return would be, hopefully at some point I say, like, you know what, the kids that are making the movies today are way better than I am. Let me lend a hand to somebody, you know, Ryan, that's more creative. And like, it's your time to shine. Take my resources that I built up. And
I wouldn't say that more creative, but
at some point you got to know when to pass the torch. You can't. Hopefully you get to enjoy you get to look back and enjoy, and see somebody else thrive in your success.
And to be a part of something special, which is always incredible. And we're talking about films. I'd like to ask you, what are some of your favorite movies?
Some of my favorite movies. I think it depends on what you're trying to do with movies. If it's in form of entertainment, there's no, you don't need to hear my favorite movies. Just know your favorite movies. But if a person who's into film and wants to study film and wants to learn, definitely, I love Barry Lyndon by Stanley Kubrick. It's a very old movie. It's a very slow-paced movie, but I think it's a perfect movie in the sense that it's a perfect story. And it's one of those things that comes, like, everything comes full circle. I don't want to give anything away.
Yeah.
It's it's like, I don't know. It's just a really good story. Another movie is Y Tu Mama. So it's a movie that's in Spanish. Y Tu Mama is and your mom. It means and your mom in English. It's dubbed, so there's no. You shouldn't listen to it in English, even though you can. You should read it with subtitles.
Yeah.
But it's a great movie, and the reason why I love it and I recommend it is, it's raw. It's there's a lot of one takes, and there's some. Don't watch it with your parents. It's I would say it's a very sexual movie. But like when you watch it, it's just like how do actors like do that and stay in character with a camera. Two, like who thinks of this, and it feels real. It doesn't feel like a movie. So if you're trying to study like capturing actors that make it more real than real life, that's a great movie to watch. It's a good story too. I think it taught me a lot about life. And then anything by Studio Ghibli. So but anything by Studio Ghibli, directed by Miyazaki. Like most of his movies are perfect 10 out of 10, just because again, it's an animation, so you have to be into animation, but he controls every detail, and there's like, you can look at every corner of every frame, and he analyzed every, like, there's something happening in the background, like somebody gave some direction to it. Beautiful movies. And the one things that I really love about Studio Ghibli and Miyazaki's films is you can show them to children understand them. And some of the topics are like a death, a family member being sick, spiritual journey, and kids understand them. You watch them again at 10. I watched them as a kid. I took something out of it. Watched it again when I was a teenager. Took something different out of it. Watched it again as an adult. Took something different out of it. And I'm excited to see what I take out of it when I'm older.
Yeah, because great movies, I feel like, always age with you.
Yeah.
So to speak. And overall, Johan, I'd like to thank you so much for coming on here.
Oh, thank you for letting me talk, and thank you for the rebuttals.
Of course.
I love your discussions.
Thank you. And do you have any like motivational words or plugs or just anything you'd want to leave the audience with?
I had one. It slipped my mind. I don't know. I think just playing it. One definitely. It's okay to hear the same lesson a bunch of times. That's like one of the big things that's like a thematic thing in my life is some, like, after 2 years, if you forget, like you can somebody can tell you about, like, this is what you do when you're in this situation, and you do it for like 2 years, and then you don't do it for 2 years, and you just forget. So sometimes you need to hear the same lesson or preaching over again. And I wouldn't call myself a very spiritual person, but like, again, to have like a write things down, have a reference. Always be learning. So
that's important, and I'd like to thank you, of course, for coming on here and for sharing the wisdom always. And I always look forward to coming to work to see you and talk to you and get to learn from you both in the office, on shoots, and yeah, kind of like your mentorship to myself and other student workers is always so important and so vital. And I've learned so much from working at Quinnipiac Productions, but especially from speaking to you. So
great.
I wanted to thank you for all the fun lessons and all the wisdom. And now you can play back your advice when this episode comes out, so you can always keep it on loop.
Well, I hope you play it forward when it's your time to mentor. And I can't wait, and I only experienced this one, but I can't wait till you mentor me. Or we, hopefully we have a long friendship and mentorship, and one day you're gonna be like, "Hey, Johan, you should do this," and I'll be like, mind blown.
We'll switch seats.
Yeah, exactly. So I like I said, I only experienced it one time with a student that I mentor, and it was so humbling.
Yeah, so that's kind of how it goes.
Yeah. Thank you for having me, and hopefully I watch it back and I learn something.
Of course. And thank you so much again. And as always, this is Ryan Zicast for the Zicast, where everyone has a story. Signing off. Thank you so much for watching.